the bench today we have a true classic, and it's blown apart. So this is a Teaberry Stalker 101, 40 channel AM sideband radio, and has probably my favorite Uniden chassis in it, the UPD 858 PLL chip chassis. Customer sent two of these in. They both, I believe, were on a farm, and one of them, not this one, was probably installed in the farm's pickup truck. They both smelled like a farm. There's nothing wrong with that. Shoot, I live in the country. I used to work on a farm as a kid. It's just, you're around a lot of livestock. There's a certain smell. And yeah, this one was internal-wise wasn't too dirty, but the other one, whoo, boy, it looked like it almost looked like somebody took the covers off of that one and threw a few shovelfuls of dust inside of it. I'm going to have a job vacuuming that one out. This one wasn't too dusty inside, but the outside's still nasty, grimy. Here's the faceplate. I don't know how it shows up in the camera, but it's actually pretty dirty. So I'll get that all cleaned up. But the customer wanted me to pick one, the better one, to install a Channel King expansion board in. So I don't think a lot of people realize that expansion board works with pretty much any of the popular PLL chips. And if there happens to be a PLL chip, as long as it's a modifiable PLL chip, even if it's not already a file written for it, it can probably be done. It's just a matter of making up a PLL adapter board for it and writing the code for that chip. But so I wanted to show a little bit about how much of a pain in the butt it can be to install those in some radios, because there's only a few radios that there are boards for the rotary encoder, or the channel selector switch, and the display. So they're bolt-in. Now, Cobra 148s, Cobra GTL 2000s, some of the Uniden radios, stuff like that, yes, take a few screws out, take the channel display, channel selector out, put the new one, they just bolt right in, basically. Other ones, not so much, and this is definitely one of those other ones. This was definitely not designed to have a channel expansion board put in. Now, actually, the board itself, installing, that's not going to be a problem. The problem, and that's where you're usually going to run into problems, it's going to be with your display and your encoder, mounting it. Now, the encoders are usually, that's not too bad, but the displays can get really tricky, and this one is, yeah, it was testing my patience. I've probably had, because this is actually, if you look, a 3-digit display, so I'm in the process of doing this one. I've probably had that board in and out well over 24 times, just trimming, massaging the size of holes and shifting it, and I still have to take it out one more. Now that everything fits fine, I now have to take them out, solder the jumper wires between because this was the snappable board, the one that you can break in half and separate the encoder board from the channel display, and now I need to install the cable that runs between those two. So this I just like I say, just want to show how much work can be involved, and it may not seem like much work, because honestly, once you're done, you're left with a couple standoffs and a little piece of fiberglass FR4 board hanging off the side, just to, so the display's in there, nice and solid, and can't fall out, but it's so time-consuming trying to get that in there. So this one, you can see, for starters, I had to come up with a proper size for, at least for this, for the left side of the display. I had to come up with a proper depth worth of standoffs. So, and that's another thing. You need a good assortment. If you're like I say, if you're installing them in one of the radios that the board is made for it, that it just is a bolted installation, yeah, those are easy. But when you're doing stuff like this, you're going to need an assortment of screws and standoffs, and other material like FR4 circuit board, just non-clad, non-plated circuit board to make up mounts and whatnot. And I prefer using that because it's easy to work with. It's fiberglass. But Yeah, so you're going to need, assortments of different size standoffs. I mean, and you can get standoffs in, male to female, so it has, male threads on one end and female on the other. There's other male, well, actually like these short little guys down here, you can get, male to male, so you can see there's a hole goes straight through the middle of it. But different length screws, I mean, it can be, you can see that whole tray back there. That's all that is. It's just standoffs and screws. That's pretty much it. But yeah, it pays to have assortments like that on hand for stuff like this when you're doing custom work, because you'll need to come up with a very specific depth, to keep the display, because this display needs to be out just a hair past the front of this, and you can see it sticks out just a hair just past the front of the sheet metal here. And sometimes, because these things only come in certain depths, so it'll go like 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 millimeter in length. Well, if you can't get it just right, then you're going to have to file or machine one down a little bit to come up with the exact length you need. So then the other side, I had to make I get sheets of this. Like I say, it's just good high quality FR4 circuit board, so it's really, it's the same board that these are made out of, but it's just non-clad. There's no copper plating on it. But it's great for making adapters because FR4 board is extremely rigid and very strong. But yeah, so you can see I made a little adapter board there, but even it has a notch cut out because I need the hole open here so these plugs can get through to the two LED, the transmit and receive LEDs. And it's just, like I say, this one with this bump out, this is what killed me on this thing. They have this bump out where the original display and the meter was, there's nowhere to drill a hole. There's not enough width there to get a screw here, and then you have a meter on this side, and then this was killing me on this side because it steps back, it jogs back, and yeah, I couldn't just, yeah, it's one of those, really test your patience. I mean, I literally sat there and, man, I just don't know how the hell I'm going to get that in there. But that's one of those things. If you run into something like that, just set it down for a while. Go do something else. Clean the board. You can still work on the same radio. Clean the board. I mean, like this one, I've, replaced all the electrolytic capacitors in it already. You do something else. Come back to it. And that's exactly what I did. I don't remember what I did, but I did something else, came back to it, looked at it, and I was like, I knew I could use standoffs here, but trying to figure out how to attach it on this side is what was getting me. And like I say, just went away for a while, from concentrating on that, concentrated on something else for a while, came back to it, and I was like, yeah, there's, and that was the other thing. There's a gap difference. So this board, when it comes off to the side here, it can't just come straight out. There's a bit of an offset, so yep, you need to, shim the board there, and yet, so because you need the display to be, even flat across the front in this orientation. But yeah, just persistence. And then same thing with this. You got to get this laid out because these holes are perfectly centered. The holes in this display board here, they're offset because it was meant to be used in like a Cobra 148, but the board can be snapped in half into two pieces like I need in this one. But those holes are offset. So you're going to have to drill new holes. Again, placement of those holes is critical because if you get that off center, when you put the faceplate back on, your knob, especially in this radio, because the knob actually sits recessed. Yes, I really need to clean this thing up because you can see it's all nasty and grimy. But it sits way recessed back in this hole. So if you get it offset, it's, you only have so much room here, but if it's offset, it's going to be obvious. It's going to look horrible. So yeah, you really need to take your time doing this. So, when you're removing something like this, because this is what was in there, this is the original channel selector switch with the original display that was meant to be held in, and what held the original, see, they had no screws holding this display in. The lens is what holds it in. When you snap this through, these little slots right here, it went in and latched into these two holes here. So it was the lens that actually held the original display in, and they used this flat flex circuit board, okay? So, you're going from a completely different type of display trying to mount in something that you need screws. But yeah, like I say, so placement of the encoder is very important. Same thing with this. If you get it offset, and this, it's very important your left to right centering of the display on this. You've got some leeway up and down, but left to right, because you got to remember you're switching from 2 digits to 3 digits. So the display size is only a little bit bigger, but it takes up, there's a lot more of that space actually used in here. And if you don't get it perfectly centered, you're going to cut off the left side of this digit or cut off the right side of this one. So, yeah, there's a couple hours right there. Just what you see there. Between those two things right there. Like I say, it's just time consuming. And I had to assemble them, solder because that's another thing you can do with these. The displays, the leads have some length to them, so setting the depth of the display, how far it's actually offset off of this board, trying to cram it down in there. Okay, that's about right for the display. And yeah, just coming up with that perfect depth is a bit of a challenge. So you can see I've already got the PLL adapter board in it. So another thing, when you install one of the Channel King boards in a radio, the radio needs to be in its factory configuration. So if there are any cut circuit traces on the PLL, they all have to be put back to factory. That's the entire reason for this adapter board. By using this adapter board, you don't need to cut any circuit traces on the radio. You just remove the PLL chip off of the main circuit board, you reinstall, you just reuse it, just stick the PLL chip back onto the adapter board. This then interfaces with the microprocessor. And then the pin headers, the standoffs here, kind of hard to see them down there, it looks like centipede legs hanging out the bottom there, but they just go down into the holes where the PLL chip originally was, and then this board is then soldered down to the main board. But yeah, so there's a little bit of the process. So like I say, I now have to remove both of these one last time because because when you snap the board in half, like I say, it's meant to be snappable. It has what they call mouse bites. When the board's designed, they put mouse bites in it. So there's only a few little small pieces of fiberglass that actually are holding those pieces together. So when you snap it apart, that also breaks the circuit traces. These 4 traces here, they go over to the display board here. Actually, you can't even see them in camera view. They're way down in there. There's the 4 little holes you can see. But I need to run a cable then now from there over to here. But there you go. I just thought I'd actually show a little bit of the process. I think some people think, oh yeah, they're easy to install. Well, yes, they are in some radios, but other radios, be ready for a couple hour battle. trying to get everything in there perfectly centered, and because you're working in 3 planes, an X, Y, Z axis. It's not like just left and right, up and down. You also have to worry about depth. So you're working in 3 dimensions, and yeah, the tiniest bit off can just throw things so far out of whack. So let me get these back out. I can now install the wires. I'll get the actual Channel King board itself installed, get that wired up, and the radio does work. I recapped it. I didn't even power it up first. First thing I did was usually what I do with old radios like this, the first thing I do, replace all the electrolytic capacitors before I even bother turning it on. Because just turning it on and diagnosing a bunch of problems just to find out, yeah, it's those 30 or 40-year-old capacitors, it's got all kinds of problems. You waste all day troubleshooting multiple problems in a radio just to find out it's electrolytic capacitors that you were going to replace anyhow. So I do that first before I even power a radio up. And was pleasantly surprised to find out that this thing works great. Has sensitivity, seems fine, just a quick by ear. Haven't done an alignment to it yet. I won't do the alignment until I get done this installation. But just a quick by ear alignment on the receiver. Receiver sounds fine. Transmit power is perfect. So let me get back to working here. And next time you see this, that display should be illuminated, and it should have a microprocessor board. I might be able to stick it in right here. That's another thing, gotta work, because you have to remember, you actually have to reach over here and grab it. Another thing you have to contend with this style radio, the radios that had the UPD-858 chassis in them, the speaker's not mounted to the cover. The speaker's mounted to this. So it has a speaker platform, basically. Okay? So you're kind of limited in room, but luckily in this installation, I was able to get the PLL adapter board down far enough, and I've got enough room here. I might actually just put the holes in the side of the speaker platform here. I'm just thinking out loud here to myself. I got to get my ribbon cable. Yeah, I can get my ribbon cable off of there down to the display then, because that's how it runs. It goes from the microprocessor board down to the display, and then there's a connector cable that goes from the display board over to the encoder board. And of course, this will be just a short one, whoop, up to the board. But yeah, I think that might be what I'll do. I'll just use the two L brackets as designed in that for most radio installations. There's enough room here. I'll just stick it right here, which is ideally the best place to put it. Keep the cable length as short as you can, and keep it as close to the actual circuitry. So there you go. There's progress so far. Just a little bit of some of the headache you have to go through when you're doing things like this. And yes, if you see the RF shields here, they will be reinstalled. I just had to remove those to, of course, replace the electrolytic capacitors, because there's several electrolytics in the PLL synthesizer circuit here. And of course, the solder connections are underneath all of these shielding plates, and then also had to get the, like I say, suck the PLL off the board and install that. So I had to remove the one shield goes here and another one right here. But now, once I get all of the solder work done, verify this works, then I can reinstall those. But so I shall return. Hopefully, the next time you see this, it should be on and working. Should have a faceplate that's cleaned up, and we can go over the radio with it actually turned on then. So I shall return. Actually, just a little quick tip. Making up the wire here to connect these two boards together. So here you can actually see them out. So there's the standoffs I ended up using to get the spacing right there. And then my stack of standoffs on this side. And the little FR4 board, like I say, had to make a notch out of it for the, where the heck are we here? Yeah, for the hole for this LED where this plug comes through. But yeah, that just takes a lot of time, that right there. That and getting this standoff at the exact right, height up and down. But just a really quick little tip I wanted to share with you. If you do a lot of stuff with ribbon cable like this, sometimes you may not be using stuff like these, or connectors like these. Now these are IDC connectors, or insulation displacement connectors. You see down in there, it looks like a bunch of shark's teeth. Okay, and the way those work is you stick your cable, it would be the full width cable, but you stick your cable in there, and then with an IDC crimper tool, you just compress this down, and then basically there's like, the wire comes down into a V, and when the plastic top comes down in, it pushes it down in, that V then slices through the insulation, and then makes contact with that metal. But sometimes you just want to use a piece of ribbon cable just as a piece of wire, but conveniently, because it has multiple wires, they're all bonded together. But trying to strip the insulation off each individual wire and then get in there with your fingers and twist them, so you don't have a bunch of fuzzy wires sticking out, and then pre-tin them, can be a pain in the hoo-ha. So you've probably seen me use these before, just amp wire strippers, but this is the one. I mean, I love these strippers. These are the ones I use all the time. But for this job, they're priceless. The reason is, unlike most wire strippers, like, hell's another set, something I never use hardly anymore, like these, you can only strip one wire at a time. These, I can do more than one wire at a time. And that's because instead of just having jaws that mesh together like this, they're wide. So you have these big steel laminated jaws in there. And as long as the wire is not any wider darn it, trying to get the light right. As long as the jaw's not any wider than the ribbon cable I'm trying to strip, I can do things like that. I can strip all 4 wires at the same time, leave a little bit of insulation on there. Don't take it off the whole way. But now what I can do is come in with my soldering iron, pre-tin each one of those 4 wires, then pull the insulation off the end, and I don't have to, and I actually just cut it off with a pair of wire cutters. But each one of those will already be pre-tinned, and I don't have to worry about all those fuzzy wires sticking out. It just makes it so much faster to pre-tin wires like this if you can strip the insulation off in one big chunk. So that's where wire strippers like this really come in handy. And you can see how they work. The jaws come together. This front part of the plastic here holds on to the insulation, and then those 2 little jaws there come in. They're actually what bite into the insulation and cut through it. But yeah, priceless for jobs like this. I just thought I'd show that really quick, because that's a little tip if you already have one of those. You may not realize you can do nice little things like that, just to make your life even easier. Okay, so you can see we got her all back together. I've just got it in general scan mode at the moment. And actually, probably Mexico down on -25. That's usually what comes in down there. Yep. Yeah, that's the international guys coming in. So, I was going to say, so that probably means it's coming in the U.S. a little bit. Nobody on the mini bowl. Let's see if there's any sideband coming in. Not yet. There was a little bit of activity on 46 a while ago. But in any case, so you can see it's up and running now. Good working little radio. I'd call this probably user's grade. This radio and its twin brother that the customer sent 2 of these, both in kind of condition. This one cleaned up not too bad. The other one, yeah, it's in worse condition. And it's got, oh my god, 20 times more dirt in that one. I mean, it's just, woo! Let me put it this way. You can't see the circuit board on this side. It is so brown, you can't see any green. None. There's absolutely no green to be seen. It's that much dirt on the top, the solder side top of the board here. Yeah, that one's definitely going to need a good vacuuming out, and that's the one that smells the worst. That one smells like it was used in the milking parlor or in a farm truck or mounted to a tractor. This one wasn't too bad. Now, I like the Teaberries for cosmetics and not. They've got something going for them, but it's also a downfall. They were kind of unique looking in that they had a gold tone to them. But that gold tone is also kind of their downfall in the case of what I consider a user's grade radio. Now, collector's grade would be, mint bezel, absolutely no blemishes, no finger wear like you see here around the clarifier. User's grade's going to have dents and dings and a few scratches. Nothing excessive. Actually, the covers actually turned out really nice. They cleaned up extremely well. And quick polishing on them brought some shine back to those. But what made these look so nice was that gold tone, but it's also a problem. So, and I've told people this before, but a lot of people still don't know. They think that the bezels on the plastic bezels on these radios, the chrome is fake. They think it's, I guess, like a spray-on finish or something. It's not. It is real chrome. It's the same chrome like they use on, well, maybe not nowadays, but they used to use on car bumpers. No difference. It's real chrome. And these radios, this one and especially the other one, go to prove it perfectly, because everywhere where there's the tiniest little pinprick in the chrome that actually punctures through the chrome surface, moisture can get in there. And on this radio, and like I say, especially the other one, because it's real chrome plated, that means there's a layer of copper underneath of it. Because when they plate plastic, they actually have to add a promotion adheter. And whew, I'll get it out. Oh my God. Talk about tongue-tied today. Adhesion promoter. My God. Anyhow, its words just did not want to come out of my mouth. Adhesion promoter to the plastic. Because unlike plating steel or other metals, where they may use some different metals between copper, nickel, and then the chrome plating. But when they do plastic, you can't just directly plate metal onto it. So they have to use an adhesion promoter. But then they go through, basically it's the same style chrome plating process. But in the case of the Teaberries, then they add that gold tone, some kind of like a clear, transparent, or translucent gold coating on it. But they look really nice because of that. The problem is that gold finish actually wears off rather easily. And this radio and the other one, I don't know what that one looks like because it's still so nasty. But this one, and no metal polish, just the only thing this was cleaned up with was a little bit of pH neutral glass cleaner and a microfiber towel. And yeah, as soon as I started to clean it off, I could see, yeah, there really was no gold tone finish left on the outside of the bezel. Now, the knobs don't look too bad. And even the face of the bezel, you can still see some of that gold tone. But yeah, the tops of it, yeah, it's there, but... And that's one of the... Getting shiny stuff in a camera is so hard. You can see back here, where it's never really been touched, it's gold. Actually, with my finger there, you can really tell the difference. You can see in the reflection. This back here is still nice and gold. This is now more of a chrome finish. And there's not really a lot you can do for that. But it cleaned up nicely. It doesn't have as many pits as the other one. That's why the Channel King board got installed in this one. So you can see it works. So actually just turn it off. We'll get it flipped over here. Just get it unhooked. And you can see I had the speaker back in it now. Which, like I say, kind of makes things a lot, again, just more tricky in these radios, the installation, because you lose a lot of real estate because of the speaker platform in here. I thought I might have, because this is the first UPD 858 chassis mobile radio I've installed one of these in, so I wasn't sure if this board was actually going to fit here, till I got the channel display and the encoder and the adapter board in there, and I actually pulled the microprocessor board out. And yes, it is mounted upside down. That was the easiest way for me to route the cables, was actually having it mounted upside down. But I thought I was going to maybe mount it to this instead. The two screws would mount to this. Actually, there was enough room lengthwise from front to back to stick it in here. So yeah, that worked out great, mounting it like that. So very compact. Basically, everything is confined to this one little area here. Had a recap and alignment. So the channel coverage on this is from -80, which is, what was that? -80 is 26.165 to channel 110, which was, 28.105. So that's, almost 2 megahertz worth of range. Let's see, 165... to 105, that would be 1.94 megahertz worth of range. Now, sensitivity on receive, transmit power actually is pretty much flat for the entire range. Yeah, you couldn't ask for a more flat transmit response. Basically, when the VCO goes out of lock, which is why I set the channel limits a little bit inside of the VCO unlock. But yeah, the transmit voltage or transmit power on this is fairly flat for the entire bandwidth. But receive sensitivity does start to drop off a little bit at the outside edges. I was able to get I think it was like 0.34 microvolts for 12 dB synad on AM. Sideband was actually, God, I think that was even like 0.1 microvolt for 12 dB synad. And I center tuned this to channel 20, and on channel 20, I was at like 20-something dB synad in sideband on channel 20, like I say, where it's center tuned, so at minus 133 dBm or 0.05 microvolts. So yeah, that's why I like the UPD-85 chassis. Excellent receivers, and the receiver sensitivity actually holds to the outside edges a lot better. Now, don't get me wrong, like I say, it does drop off, but even at the levels it's at, it's still very good compared to a lot of other chassis. So there you go. There's just a video on installing one of the Channel King boards in one of these. I thought I'd show a little bit of the process and some of the pains you go through when you do stuff like this, because a lot of people, I don't think they realize how much of a pain in the rear side it can be sometimes when you're doing, you'd think, well, it's just a matter of changing the encoder, slap a display in there, throw a few boards in it, and you're done. Yeah, it's not that simple, guys and gals. Sometimes it is. Like I say, if you get a radio where there are the Cobra 2000s, Uniden Madisons, Cobra 148s, actually a lot of the mobile radios where the channel display is above the channel selector, you got it made there. There's a board that you can use in those. Actually, it's the board that's used in this one. It just had to be, because it's a modifiable board, it can be snapped in half and then those two pieces relocated. But like I say, that just adds a lot of complexity to the installation in one of these. So there you go. There's a working Teaberry Stalker 101 that now covers 1.94 megahertz of range, and does it very well, actually. So now I can seal this one up, get out the next Stalker 101, and probably spend the next half hour sucking dirt out of that thing. And I'm not sure if I'll do a video on that one or not. Actually, I might, just to show how nasty that thing is, because wow, that one was definitely mounted in a mobile. This one, might have been mounted in a mobile or something, but it was taken a lot better care of than the other one was. So, like I say, I may not, I don't know. I just did the video on this one, so and that one is not getting a Channel King board. That one's just going to be straight, a straight radio. So. I just wanted to show this one because, like I say, I thought some people might find it of some interest, the actual installation of some of this stuff. So there you go, Teaberry Stalker 101.